Now we're going to dive into some fun with Observability Self-Hosted. And to help me do that, I have a lovely friend and THWACK MVP, Marsh, here with me. Hi, Jez.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm really excited to share the things that we're doing today. And to that end, can you share a little bit about yourself and your experience with Observability Self-Hosted?
All right. So my name is Marsh. I'm on THWACK, as Silverback says. I have the pleasure of being MVP and it have been for 10 years. So I must be doing something right. I've been working with the platform for around about 12 years now. Initially with a managed service provider that I was working for. And then, bizarrely, on the year I became an MVP, I started my own business that does professional services around just SolarWinds. That's all I do. And I'm very, very happy to be here to help.
Awesome. Well, it's fair to say that you've seen a lot and done a lot with the platform then, huh?
Yeah, I've been around the block a few times. Plenty of challenges, upgrade problems. We've all seen the robot, right? I've been there a few times.
Yeah.
Worse way before the Falcon installer. So, but much better now.
It is much better now. And to that end, we have discussed a couple of things that we wanted to walk through with everyone today. So we're going to jump right in. We have three kind of pillars that we're going to talk about, things that are applicable to anyone who's using Observability Self-Hosted. And to some extent, also, if you're just using the module separately, some of the features I'm going to discuss are only Observability Self-Hosted features, but those are going to be pointed out. So just for your awareness, they're going to be labeled as Observability Self-Hosted features. Outside of that, everything that we're going to talk about is going to be applicable, whether you have the formerly Orion modules and you have them separately, or if you're using Observability Self-Hosted, the principles are pretty much the same in either case. So we're going to jump right in. The first kind of pillar that we want to talk about is how scalability has changed. And this is a really important topic, especially I think as we've moved forward. There's been a lot of changes over the last few years as far as, how you can scale out your products and how you can make them go farther, whether it's with polling or, maybe your website is really slow and you're trying to scale out on the website because you have too many users. There's a lot of things that have changed over the last few years. And this has kind of always been, even, back whenever I was working with lots of different companies all the time in a similar capacity to Jez, similar concept, right? We had the same problems where you're trying to get the most out of it. And then, in the past, that would have involved standing up additional polling engines all the time. And you do still have to do that to an extent, but so you got to stand up an additional polling engine. You have to go mess with the polling load. You have to manually move entities around to kind of make sure that you're getting the most and that your platform is performing well, I think is fair to say. So let's kind of start with understanding polling load. And I'm going to show this a little bit later when we get into our demo where you can find your polling load. But I think it's kind of a confusing concept at first. What do you mean things are different weights? What do you mean that just doing one monitor over here is going to cost me a bunch or anything like that? Is that a problem that you kind of have to help people with a lot, is kind of balancing things out, Jez?
Oh yeah, it's one of the common challenges. The main polling engine can handle a lot more than it did back in the day, but there's always reasons why you need to scale that polling out, whether it be for basic load, there's too many elements, or geographical location of the devices you want to poll. So it's quite common. You might need to put a polling engine in another data center, which might be another campus or a different country, even in some cases. So the flexibility of being able to add those scalability engines is one of the key benefits of the platform.
Yeah, for sure. And, we were talking about, as we were kind of planning this out, you brought up the stackable polling engines, which is something that I don't feel like gets highlighted enough. And let's dive in a little bit about stackable polling engines and how those have helped scale things up.
Yeah, so if you've got a physical server which has got plenty of compute available, but you've reached the end of your polling capacity. You've got in the old days, it was around about 12,000 elements. You can't really put another machine for various reasons, don't have enough space in the rack, or simply don't get the budget. What you can do is activate another polling engine license on the same server, which effectively doubles the capacity from what you would have had from the original one. And you can do that multiple times. I think it's up to 3 on top of the original polling engine to give you plenty of grunt to get what you need polled. Especially if you've got that investment with a physical machine, you can get the best out of it.
Yeah, you're definitely you can if you got the resources already there, there's no need to necessarily spin up a whole new server. Stacking it on top can be there, but you got to have the resources. That's really important. I did want to bring up too, new in the current RC 2025.4, which will be GA release soon. We are adding capabilities for adaptive scale, and this is really exciting to me because it means that our additional polling engines can continue to be scaled based on the number of resources that they have attached to them. So you can add CPU and memory and scale up your usage of that additional polling engine without having to necessarily stack another license on or set up a whole new additional polling engine. So it's going to continue to increase by how many resources it has. And I think that's going to make a really big impact on the size of your SolarWinds environment, but also the amount of management that you have to do on balancing that polling load out across servers.
Yeah, exactly. Lean straight into what we were talking about having a really big server, but being able to use it more. And I mean, I don't have a big enough instance to use the RC on. So this is going to be exciting for me to actually start using in the wild when it gets the general availability.
For sure. And something I mentioned earlier is that additional web server. So, something that people quite often do, and I used to recommend all the time, and I still do, is basically offloading your website from your main polling engine. Because what people may not know is your primary polling engine does a lot of the heavy lifting for the entire platform. So, it's doing alerting, it's doing reporting, it's doing polling, it's doing all of the like recommendations engine runs on it. It's doing like the config stuff. It also hosts your website, but you can stand up an additional web server and have your website be completely like offloaded from what your polling engine is doing if you wanted to do that. And in the current RC, we've scaled it up to now be 100 concurrent users for each additional web server. And I think that that's really big deal for offloading it from there, right? We get a lot of people, they'll complain about the website being slow. I used to hear this all the time. The website's so slow. I've definitely heard people say that the website is down when they really mean slow. And I'm sure that's a continuous problem for people. And one of the things that you can do to quickly and easily kind of just deal with that is stand up additional web engines. And I know something a lot of people also will do is stand up load balancers, which are not a SolarWinds product, but you can stand up load balancers to balance that web traffic across multiple web servers so that you can also kind of help out with that load.
Yeah, both of those things will really help. I mean, the 100 concurrent users on the new additional web engines is going to be enough for most people. And
Yeah.
since if you have the observability self-hosted licensing, you can just use them if you've got the enterprise scale bolts on. Doesn't cost you anything apart from compute on a host if you run it as a VM. I mean, the bigger the instance, the better the idea is to pull the web traffic off there to give the end users the best experience. Because you have a user who uses it for the first time. If it's slow, they're going to be like, I don't want to use this. But if it's
Yeah.
nice and quick, well, you won't get those complaints. It saves on the headache.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for sure. So it's genuinely an issue. We want more people to be able to use it. You want to be able to share out those dashboards so that people can just have an idea of what they're doing. So the more people able to use it, the better. And then, real quickly, before we move on from here, I want to talk about the flexible licensing, which, if you hadn't noticed, we for observability self-hosted, we now have flexible licensing. So it doesn't matter. You can distribute your license by node. So, like, you have 1,000 nodes. Well, that can be across one server. You can put all the polling load on one server, or you can put it across multiple servers. It's all about how you do it. So, like, if you have a distributed environment, and like Jess was talking about earlier, maybe it's a geographic situation, like you're mostly based in the US, for instance, but you have some offices that are in EMEA, or you have some offices that are in the Asia Pacific region, then maybe it would be better for you to have that polling being done from a local place. And that's where you can kind of distribute that load. And you can do that now with the additional web engines and additional polling engines and all of that stuff. But having flexible licensing means that you may not need to buy an additional polling engine if you already have the node licensing to handle what you actually need. There are specific use cases that don't consume licenses at all, which I think is also really cool. So if you're doing ICMP only polling, or if you're only doing cloud and hypervisor VMs with no additional monitoring, those don't even consume a license. So you can still get a bit more out of it than you probably already are.
Yeah, I use the ICMP licensing for access points, because whilst you get the information from the wireless LAN controllers of how many users on them, it's always useful to know if one of your APs has fallen over, and it doesn't cost you anything. So stick them on there.
Great call out. Well, that will take us into our next segment that we want to talk about, which is how you can monitor your devices everywhere. What do we mean by that? Well, primarily I'm talking about, we realize that environments are mostly hybrid now, right? Like, there's a lot of people out there that say that they're all cloud, and then some people that might be true. But primarily, I think if anyone's saying they're all anything, they're still all on-prem. But I think everybody is kind of in a hybrid state, right? You have some things that are in the cloud, you have some things that are on-prem, and they're kind of working together. And one of the things that we've really like pumped up lately is our support for cloud devices and cloud metrics. And we've got more things for GCP, Azure, and AWS going on, so you can get all that information in one place. And then you can build dashboards, which we're going to show you. Dashboards, which have all of those metrics, so you can get that end-to-end visibility no matter where things are based. So, if your database server is hosted on-prem, but your web front end is hosted in the cloud, you can still get all that visibility that you need in one place and have that eye-opening, like, this is what's going on here, and I know where the problem is, and here's how everything was responding at the same time, kind of a situation. And in the new RC, we also are releasing a new cloud cost dashboard for Azure and AWS. And that's also exciting because it's one less place you have to go look for things. So having that cloud cost right there at your fingertips will be really helpful. So as I mentioned, you get those unifying dashboards, and we're going to show some dashboards and some perf stacks and all that in a bit. And you can set up knock dashboards for auto rotation, get everything kind of in one place. And of course, so before, earlier this year, I think, they added dark theme for knock dashboards. But now we're adding dark theme for all modern dashboards. And I'm going to show you that too. How excited are you for dark theme?
Oh, there's only something we've been waiting to get into the platform for a while, and I'm wearing my little mascot. For those who know me, you'll know what it means. But no, it's great to see the progress of the dark mode or dark theme going through the platform. I think the previous release, it was just for knock dashboards, and now it's any of them in the modern dashboards. So it's great. I'll be using those to try and save on some electricity and eyeballs, which is always good.
Yeah. Save our eyes, save our heads, right? You don't want to get a headache from staring at those bright screens all the time.
Yeah.
And then the last segment we're going to talk about is reducing the noise. So we talk about alerting a lot. We want to bring down the noise. And some of the ways that you can do that are anomaly-based alerts, which we've been over before. We've had them for a while now for nodes, and then we added volumes in the new RC, also adding interfaces. So there's even more statistics. You can see we're continuing to grow that. So where you can reduce the amount of alerts that you're getting for things. And we'll go through that as well in the demo. And you've got automated actions. And I want to talk about this a little bit more right now, because Jess, you brought this up about updating your custom properties. And I want to talk about that a little bit more. Can you tell us, like, what purpose would it have for updating your custom properties with alerts?
Well, custom properties is one of my favorite things in the platform. When you have them built, they can be used for pretty much anything, whether it be reports, grouping, auto grouping with the dynamic queries. And I use what I call management alerts to have set these custom properties to, especially the key ones, to make sure things are put into the right groups, either as they're discovered or when a status changes, various different reasons to actually use them beyond just putting them into groups and sorting and the managed nodes, which is another useful way of using them.
Well, and I know that in the past, because I also am a big fan of custom properties, in the past have you used them because you can use them so many places in the platform, like from your dashboards and your reports and your alerts and everything. Being able to automatically update those, like maybe you moved a device to a different location, or maybe it's been organized under a different team, and so you updated that alert email or something like that. There's lots of different ways you can use custom properties. But because they're so useful across the platform, I think that being able to update them automatically so you don't have to go back and do all that, as you said, maintenance, it's like a maintenance for your SolarWinds platform of having to not have to go manually update all of those things or look for them when they're empty. So you can make sure that they have things in them. And I think that that is a big time saver.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned emails there. Having the email addresses for the recipient distribution group for the team that owns a device, for example, if you have that in a custom property, you can automate the filling out of that into a trigger action for when you send, well, if you send emails. A lot of people tend to use direct API calls into ITSM platforms, but some people still like to know via an email. That automates it. So you only have to have a single alert for downloads, for example, because the email address that it's sent to is in a custom property and it's dynamically pulled out each time the alert triggers. So it's really handy to use them in that way.
Yeah, you say that not as many people use email alerts anymore, but I'll tell you, we did a poll over on THWACK recently, and still quite a few people rely really heavily on email alerts. So I think that even though people are still using or integrating with their IT service management platforms, and even though I'm always talking about automating your actions and always talking about other alternatives besides sending emails, there's still a fair number of people out there doing that, and if you can reduce the amount of time that it takes you to go update all those things by using distribution lists or using a custom property or what have you, I think that really will save you a lot of time. So if you're still using emails, definitely check out the alert email custom property values, because I think there's an article on it in the documentation on the support center. Definitely check that out because it will save you some time. I also noted in here that you can run scripts. So I wanted to bring this up specifically because I think it's something that people don't consider as much. Whereas if you're going to be running a script or something to update it anyway, like, oh, if this email comes through or this ticket comes in, we're going to have to go run this automation somewhere. You could probably just execute that automation from the alert itself instead of having to go somewhere else and update it and do it over there. Have it do the automation for you, and then maybe still do an update, like send an update after 5 minutes if it's still a problem or whatever. You can send those updates using escalations and all that. And the last thing we're going to talk about for bringing down the noise is the recurring maintenance windows, which, if you didn't know, have been implemented. And we have had maintenance mode for quite some time, and it was kind of static, right? It was a one time, you put it into maintenance mode, you can set the time for it to expire, or you can set it to never expire. And then later, whenever you're deciding that it's done, then you could turn it back off. And maintenance mode, if you haven't used it yet, basically turns off the alerting, so you don't get alerts while it's going under maintenance, and which is great. But we now have recurring maintenance windows, which are awesome because if you have the same maintenance all the time, right? Every week at 2 a.m., it's going to undergo this server reboot, it's doing patches, it's doing whatever. You can throw it into maintenance mode during that time so you're not getting a bunch of emails. And it can just be like every week, it just goes into maintenance mode, and now you don't have to do anything with it, which we love. And they've added support in the RC for volumes as well. So that's one more thing you can throw into maintenance. So if it's just a volume that's every month they're doing, I don't know, SQL indexing or something, and you don't want to receive alerts while it's undergoing its SQL jobs on that volume, just don't.
Yeah, perfect. Flexibility is always useful. I mean, people used to use various other methods to actually do things like this, but they were always complicated, usually scripting. Somebody has to own it and keep it updated. And if that person leaves, messy. But it's in the platform. natively now. So it's going to be really useful for an awful lot of operational teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to have, like notes in there to say why it's going under maintenance mode, all of these things. Like, I think that we don't utilize notes enough in the platform. Like, we being the people who are using the platform, not we as in SolarWinds, because there's notes for alerts and there's notes for all kinds of places. And I find that, and I don't know if you experience the same thing, just, but I find that people don't use those like at all. and and it would be really useful, right? Like you create when I create an alert or a report or something, I like to put something in the description about why I created it and who I created it for and all of that to reduce that kind of maintenance and that like quest to find who owns this when people leave. Like you were just talking about. I feel like that maintenance is really important, and like any place that you can have information in there will be helpful for you in the long run.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I use the notes on the edit node page to put in there whenever somebody changes a custom threshold for memory or CPU or something. Whilst everybody will have a ticket to back that up because most people have practice change control. Having it right there for the people who use SolarWinds every day, so they don't have to go fishing through the tickets to see what happened. Put it in there. Just say threshold for CPU changed such and such a date by whom, and then people can see the history of what's changed. It's useful, and like you say, unused really by a lot of people. I try and tell the people I work with to use it, and I certainly always put a description in reports and alerts that I build, so people can know exactly what I've built. Because
Yeah.
once I've left, it's expensive to get me back.
Well, you wouldn't say no though.
Well, no, of course not.
Well, and then now we're going to jump into demo. We're going to show you some of the things that we brought up. Now we're going to dive into a few things. I'm going to start where we started in our presentation, which is scalability. And I want to talk about a couple of things. Well, first, since we launched on it, this is the new home summary page. If you haven't seen it, this is what it looks like. And it is a modern dashboard. So later you'll see that dark theme come into effect. But we're going to jump into the scalability area first. We're going to go into our settings, and I want to take a look at two pages specifically. So we're going to go down here into details, and we're going to look at our polling engines page. And I found this really helpful before. So we're like, you get information on, how many elements that you have on each polling engine. You can get information on this. You can get information on the database sync. A long time ago, many years, definitely have had to use this to figure out which server was off. And partly that was caused by a time difference, which was a whole situation back in the day. And thankfully isn't so much a problem anymore. But like you can get information here on like how is that synchronization going? If you're seeing gaps in your polling data, like maybe it's not being kept up to date. You can get your polling completion rate here as well. And that's broken down by your rates down below. So if you did have questions about like what's doing, maybe you have all of your IPAM jobs on the same server, you can come in here and look and see, maybe I should offload some of that, or, maybe I should offload my application monitoring. Some of it's too heavy on this server. So you're really overloading it and getting a little bit of gaps and things like that because it's overloaded. So use that polling engines details page to your benefit to see how things are performing as you're going and make sure you can balance things out as needed. And then we're also going to go look at we're going to go to the My Deployment page, and we're going to go to Deployment Health. I love this page, and if you haven't seen it, I don't know, maybe you haven't been paying attention because it's been around for a while. But if you're having any issues with your server, Deployment Health can really help you a lot in doing all of these checks against your server to see, are your connections happening in a reasonable amount of time? If database maintenance is working properly or if it's having problems, and you can come in here and get details on all of that information and kind of see what's causing a problem and if you can do anything about that, or even just provide this information to support if you do have a support case open. So I just wanted to cover that for our earlier conversation about scalability. And then if we go into the old way of things, we go into manage nodes, which is still the way of doing things. I don't know what anyone else is doing. We go to
Muscle memory.
yeah, muscle memory for sure. So you go in here and like this is typically where I would do load balancing in the past, right? Like, oh, I gotta move like, I'm gonna take these two. You can come in here and like move them around, put maintenance mode on. We're gonna talk about that here in a second. But like you can come in here and move them to a different polling engine, and you might need to do that for whatever reason. Like I said, maybe it's got heavy application monitors and you're trying to balance that out. So if you haven't ever done any polling load balancing, it's not that complicated. It's more like you just have to know what you're looking at. And so having that information is going to be really helpful. And I'll try to pop some links in the chat to documentation that will help you on your quest to balancing that load. So next, we're going to look at, I want to look at two things. We're going to look at our new cloud cost dashboard, which is an addition. So before we were doing some cloud monitoring, we were adding all of that stuff in, and this is currently in RC. So you're going to see now we have cloud cost monitoring, which can be really helpful, right? Instead of having to go in, log into AWS and log into Azure and all of that to see, how our things are going. Maybe you're getting unexpected charges or whatever. There's a whole like meme industry on the internet about AWS cloud costs. So, I'm sure everyone's familiar. But having that all here and together, so, it's pretty frequent that people are using multi-cloud, and being able to have all that in one place should actually really help you out. It's not like super detailed. You're not going to be able to like dive into the nitty-gritty of it. You'll have to go back to AWS or Azure for that, but this is a great start, and it's right there at your fingertips to have that information.
Yeah, really handy. This is the first time I'm seeing this page. So yeah, that's going to save an awful lot of people a lot of time, and also give an awful lot of people a lot of headaches and nightmares when they actually see it.
I think that's true when cost is involved on anything.
What? Yeah, true.
It's gonna be a little bit of a headache, but, that's how it goes. Oh, I need to go once I'm a step ahead of myself, so I'm gonna go back a step. We're gonna look at, PerfStack, which if I can get this right, into performance analysis dashboards, and I created a performance analysis dashboard for us to look at, and I very handily named it Chrystal's project, which is not helpful for anyone else, but is helpful for me to do this demo. But it wouldn't be named that if it was anything else. And I wanted to just talk about this a little bit. I think that performance analysis or PerStack is an underutilized resource, but it is doing like real time metrics, and you can line them all up from end to end. So we've got some cloud metrics in here. We've got some on-prem metrics in here. Like I said earlier, maybe you have a database that's on-prem. You have your front end or your application end that is is hosted in the cloud. You can still get all of those metrics in one place, as well as see, are we having alerts going on at the same time, and really just get a highlight of, I can just click on a segment like, oh, it's really high right here. Maybe I care about this. And now you can see how it was performing during that time, and go up and down the list and see how everything else was going that's connected to it. So maybe you can help get your root cause sooner. And it's really easy to use, which I think is great. You just pick your metrics that you want to have in here. This is what we've got. I've got 3 nodes on this dashboard. I've got some SQL application. I've got Azure storage. I've got IIS, and all of those things, are connected to the same application stack. And I can see them all at the same time, starting with status at the very top to say like, oh, this is down at this time. Let's go take a look down the line. How was everything doing? What was not performing? Maybe we weren't getting stats back or whatever. You can get that information straight from performance analysis. How
Yeah,
often do you
PerfStack's
use?
incredible.
Yes. How often do you use it?
Oh, all the time, especially if I need to help clients try to understand when there are issues. And just generally when I'm teaching them how to use the platform, this is one of the tools that I go and highlight because it's invaluable. When this was added to the platform, I wish I had it going back too many years ago to want to admit. When I was back in the trenches doing the standard support jobs, because being able to add, so say for example, a lot of companies are still siloed. So you'll have your application team, your network team, and so on. So the support team would get a ticket in. They can have a look at what they can see, put their metrics on this performance dashboard, save it, share it with the application team. They can then put their metrics on, and then if they can't find the root cause, they can then save it again, share it with the network team, and eventually it becomes a collaborative tool if used that way. It's really, really useful.
I love it. More collaboration, less blame, more collaboration. I'm all for it. And you brought up something that I made sure that I put in our demo here, which is that did you know you can add perf stacks to modern dashboards? And I've got a showcase for us here where you can get your all your widgets. So if you want a KPI widget, you need a table, whatever. I've got a few things on here. And then you can just add a perf stack right to a dashboard. So maybe this is information that you want, but you still need high level information, or you want to add a map to it. This is a map, believe it or not. A map to it, or you want something else going on. You want all that information in the same place. And then now this is a dashboard that you can share out with whomever. So maybe it's a knock dashboard. Maybe it's, maybe it's part of a series of things and you just have a perf stack included in that. But, make sure that you're using it because I think it's super powerful. And as you mentioned, like having all that information right at your fingertips, and it's the first place you go for collaboration. So like as this perf stack gets updated, if we were to add more metrics to it, or we were to share it out with another team and they added more metrics to it, that would get updated also on this dashboard. And I think that that would save everybody just so much time in troubleshooting.
Yeah, I mean, the perf stack itself and the time series widgets that you can put on the modern dashboards can actually be the foundation of many useful dashboards all on their own. Because you can look at your key applications and their KPIs, put them in a project, save it, and then stick that on your dashboard for your key applications teams, for your executive level people to wander around and go, oh, that's useful, and then totally ignore it as usual. But it's useful
Yeah.
to actually put that up there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really easy, right? Like, I mean, if I go in to edit this page here and if I was to add a new time series widget, this is what it looks like on the back end. Then you can come in here and just when you're configuring it, we have, some information here about what we're doing with it. If you want it to be collapsed, if you want to do different things with it, where it's updating again for us there on the refresh. And then our data model, I selected a perf stack project and then I added my perf stack because that's the only one that's on here, but in this demo. But I think that that's really powerful. It's super easy. You can just get it added on there and then be done with it. And like I said, it continues updating. So I think that's really huge. And as promised, I will show you right here under profile. If I go change my profile to dark mode, dark theme here, we're instantly in there. So we can go back now to our home page, for instance. I can click on the right thing. Go back to our home page, for instance, and it's all dark. Now, this
Yes.
does mean that when you switch back to classic dashboards, that those are going to still be light mode. But anything that's hosted on a modern dashboard now can be dark theme for you.
Yeah, that looks so much cooler.
Doesn't it? It looks
Yeah.
great. I love it.
I'm only a little bit biased, but yeah, it's just so much easier on the eye.
Yeah, I think the MVPs have only been bringing up dark theme in every virtual event and in-person event for years and years and years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things we like just, lighthearted trolling every time we're there. To support you guys and also just, wind you up a little bit. But no, it's great. Really good to see it.
We're just about out of time, but one last thing I want to show is real quick. Just want to show our anomaly-based alerts. Which, as you can see, this is back to light mode. And we have added interface, average, transmit, and discards and errors into our anomaly-based alerts. So just adding more power to that to get you less alerts than you were getting before, and only getting alerts when things are anomalous rather than just like whenever a static threshold has been met or whenever your even a dynamic threshold is not going to really get seasonality. So like being able to see that and see all the suppressed alerts. So if I click this, I can see how many alerts have been suppressed. I think that's going to make a really big impact for everybody. So if you're using anomaly-based alerts already, you'll be familiar with how it works. We don't have time to dig into it, but we just flew through this demo, and I want to thank you, Jez, for coming and sharing your experience with us and walking us through some of these features that people can really use. Like I said, we'll drop links in the chat. If I miss out on doing it here in the next few seconds before we move to the next session, I'll still make sure they get in there so that everybody can experience all of this themselves.
Hey, no problem. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed this session. Hope everybody else did.